Good afternoon. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the Numbers People Live. Hope you're having a great week. Can you believe we're in June already? The year is flying by, so I hope you're enjoying it. Today's show, I've called it How to Survive the Six-Stage Interview Process. It's kind of a crazy world we're in. My honest opinion is that 2 or 3 interviews are enough, but guess what? Companies want more, and they have been doing these 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 interview stages. In my career, the longest I have seen is 17 interviews as CFO. Now, I had 17 different meetings before he secured his job. That took 6 months. And when you think about it, wow, there to survive 6 months of meetings and be interrogated and pulled apart, surprised he took that job. But look, it's crazy that companies want to do this. And speaking of my recruiter friends, it really does come analysis paralysis. Like, you meet someone, you like them, the longer you spend with them, you will find something negative. Like, if I interviewed you for 6 interviews, 6 hours, I'd find something negative about you, and likewise you'd find something perceivably negative about me as well, which is I think a lot of companies lose track. But the reality is that this 6 interview process is happening, and case studies and presentations and fatigue sets in, and we kind of lose our way, and it's just frustrating. But today's episode is to prepare you for the different stages and how to stay mentally on it and just get you through the finish line. So this week has been interesting. I mentioned on the last show, my business have been ghosted twice on contract roles, sent candidates, and their clients just didn't get back to us, which obviously affects them, it affects me, it affects the candidates, the employer brand. It blows my mind. I heard a story this week. A 200K candidate was starting on Monday, just didn't show up. And they called him, they contacted him, they emailed him, trying to get in contact as much as they could, and he just didn't show up and haven't been in touch with them since. And he's a 200K candidate. I don't know who it is, but yeah, I mean, behavior like that, you've just burnt bridges with a lot of people. I find it interesting because those people who are in that company where he was meant to be joining, they're not going to be in that company forever. They'll move somewhere else, and he'll always have that on his back. Just let's be honest and transparent. I don't know where we've gone wrong over the last couple of years, but this is where we are. So thanks for the feedback on the show so far. I've seen a lot of improved resumes and LinkedIn profiles, which is good. And to recap, I'll just click on this for us for what we're going to go through. So let's make that a bit bigger. So this is 6 interviews and 1 role, how we're going to get it. And this is what we're going to focus on today. But to recap, each week it's 30 minutes of just straight talk. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll endeavor to get them answered. If not, I will get back to you after the show is finished. So episode 1 was about the CV and your LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of improvement around that, about using correct language in this time where we're living in at the moment, so we can have a play with that. If you do want a resume template, shout out. There is one on my LinkedIn profile if you want to click in documents there. Episode 2 was about the strategy. I called it the application trap, and we talked about the direct email, these email hunters, where we can get the emails, you can figure out who your boss would be, still apply directly, and still send a direct email to your perceived boss. I just don't think it can do any harm. And I know a couple of you have done that recently, which is good. And episode 3 was about what CFOs are really looking for. And they're really looking for somebody who they can trust. If they're in a board meeting or other way, it's not a focus really on the technical ability. They take that for granted to a certain extent. So we talked about that. And today we're going to be talking about the different stages of the interviews and how to prepare and how to be engaged, because we are seeing it. I spoke to a guy, he did his 5th interview, and he's just over it. He's completely done with it, but he's that invested now in the process that he is he's just going to go with it. So I was having a chat with him. It's like for the 6th interview, you've got to prepare like your first. You've got to be full of energy, and with your questions as well, you tend to repeat yourself, which I'll talk about in this episode. And you feel like you're getting a bit better at answering it, but it just feels rehearsed. So we kind of want to stay away from that, which I'll talk about shortly. Before I go on, following on from the last episodes, I had a few questions come through. I can't go through all of them right now. This was one that I got a message, Rich, I got through to the final round, but the company have gone cold on me afterwards. How do I know if I've actually bombed or if they're just slow? This guy's been waiting a week and a half since his final interview. I mean, it's a week and a half. And unfortunately, I said to this guy, silence tends to be the answer here. I mean, he should have had feedback by now. It's been a week and a half. In the recruitment space, it can be a day or two before we get that final feedback, because obviously you've got people who've got day jobs and they've got to get to it kind of thing. But a week and a half silence is probably the answer. But do you know what? These days, I mean, my experience and knowledge sometimes doesn't count for anything. I remember a couple of years ago we had final round interviews and it just went quiet for a week and a half. And then I just get a call from the client. Yeah, we'd like to offer this lady. And it literally been nearly 2 weeks to the day to the final interview with no feedback, no contact, anything. So the candidate was like, "What's going on?" And in the end, I was like, "Look, I've got nothing to say." So the candidate was going cold. The candidate turned the job down after 2 weeks, and the client was just a bit bemused. So I had to kind of educate that client. Well, like the silence was deafening. And every day that passes, that's what happens. It creates doubt. So, yeah, I mean, with that question I was just talking about, silence is probably the answer. I mean, it's really just poor from that company. But look, I mean, unfortunately, it's a bit commonplace now. Another question similar to that first one: I had a recruiter ghost me after my second interview. Is that normal? It's not normal. But again, it's kind of commonplace where we're seeing that kind of behavior, the whole ghosting thing, the whole not getting back to people, is the whole common decency seems to be a thing of the past. It seems like 2026 is the year of people not caring and just putting it behind them. It's like, oh, I don't have to give feedback. If that person's ghosted you, I mean, just don't deal with them again. Simple as that. It's just disappointing, isn't it? But look, we've just got to get through it. And unfortunately, again, for that, is it normal? Unfortunately, I think it is, which is terrible to say that. I mean, if my recruitment business, we get back to people, but unfortunately, some recruiters aren't. I know, and I've worked for big recruiters in the past. You do get treated more like a number. And it's disappointing, but with the smaller agencies like myself and the boutique agencies, we tend to be more experienced, we tend to care more, and we're bigger picture. We understand our behavior now is going to reflect in 2 years kind of thing. So we try and do the right thing all the time. And there's a lot of good recruiters out there, but the terrible ones like this person has been ghosted by a recruiter in a recruitment agency. It's poor, so just don't deal with them, and that experience, just put it behind you. And another question I had, which really is a good segue into today's episode. I've got a 5-stage interview coming up. Is this normal, and how do I stay sharp? So it's a great segue into the presentation, which I'll check. Had a question come through: is this just for executive finance roles or at all levels? This is at all levels. I mean, my business, we kind of recruit from that kind of 123 to CFOs. It's applicable to all those. Across the broader corporate world, it is probably applicable to what I'm going to talk about now. It's fascinating. CFOs who we're interviewing at the moment are having the same experience as candidates at that 70, 80 grand level. They're getting treated the same, which again blows my mind. You think you'd want to possibly be a bit more professional, but we're just not seeing that. Again, what's the answer to that? I don't know. But look, any questions? Thanks for that question, and keep them coming through. But yeah, it's an interesting time we are in. But look, we've just got to get on with it, don't we? And the point of me doing these shows as well is just to equip you as best as you can. Put your best foot forward. And if look, you still don't get anywhere, it's not you. It's the market. It's those companies. And look, it's their loss is the way to look at it. So let's click onto this. So surviving the 6-stage interview. Why strong candidates lose long processes. It is a lot to do with fatigue. I'm going to talk about a playbook, a round-by-round framework for staying sharp, consistent, and memorable. That's the challenge we have with long interview stages. You could be nailing the 4th, and on the 5th one, you're just over it, and you don't go there as your true self, and you kind of let it go and get a bit lax. I'm not saying that for all of you, but that's what happens. And then one question that resets after every round that kind of keeps you front of mind as well, and can obviously educate you, well, not obviously, because you don't know what I'm going to say yet, but can educate you to the next role. Seeing what I'm seeing on the ground as well, I mean, apart from that ghosting example with that candidate who didn't show up on Monday, 11 weeks average time to hire for an ASX listed senior finance role. That's what we're seeing. In 2019, it was about 4 weeks. The process has tripled. I mean, these long processes, again, it's analysis paralysis. It's difficult being a candidate because you just left in the wind. I mean, 1 in 3 drop out. I mean, candidates, and I keep on saying this to all our clients and people we're dealing with, speed is of the essence. There's a million posts on LinkedIn, here on LinkedIn, that talk about speed. I think every recruiter that probably on the planet has lost a candidate because of speed, because the client's taking too long. And that's what happens. I think there's a number of clients over the last few years who've been disappointed when their favorite candidate has accepted another role. And when the feedback is you're taking too long, the response is, oh, well, it is what it is. And it's not what it is, because you don't need to do that. And I've been educating people where if you've got a first interview, why are you taking a week for the second interviews? It can be done a couple of days, a few days later. The speedier it is, the more excited the candidates are. But it's a 1 in 3 dropout. And if you're in a hiring position, just be mindful of that. And I've put here as well, after round 4, it's mostly theatre and risk management, which I'll touch on in a moment. Process length is now the candidate's biggest enemy. I reckon it is. Any interview you go for, that first interview, you're engaged, you're energetic, you're up for it, you're prepared and everything. But the modern hiring process doesn't just test your ability to do the job. It tests everything else. And like we touched on here, stamina, consistency, your capacity to perform under compounding pressure. The problem is none of that is your job, is it? 3 reasons strong candidates lose long processes. It's the energy, it is the fatigue. What made you compelling in round 1? Your presence, your curiosity spark you're literally deflated by round 5. You're technically precise, but you're emotionally, energetically flat. Number 2, inconsistent panels, inconsistent signals. Different interviewers pulled slightly different version of your story. Without a locked in narrative and a consistent theme, there's a thing called credibility gaps, and you can give a different version of a story. So again, it's a bit consistent, consistency, which I'll touch on a bit later. And it's authenticity as well. We talked about this rehearsal. There is a ceiling on the rehearsal. Your answers do sound engineered, and CFO CEOs, they can pick up on that. They know when an answer is too good to be true, kind of thing. It's a quick story for you. This was years ago. This was about maybe 14 years ago for me. I was interviewing this lady, and swear down, it's like she had prior knowledge of the questions I was going to ask and the answers. She just nailed every answer so well, it created doubt for me. And back then, I actually knew someone who worked with her a few years ago. And he was actually a friend of mine, so kind of informal reference, if you will. And I called him about it, and this lady was absolutely fantastic, brilliant at interview, but too good. So I called my friend and I said, oh, what do you know about her? And he said, stay away from her. She is toxic, one of the worst people who's ever worked in our company. And it was interesting because she was so good at interview, it just went against her. And then, you get that gut feeling. I was like, this isn't right. Like, she is nailing every answer, like kind of like eager to tell me the answer before I'd even asked it, kind of thing, which is, and that gut feeling, we can talk about that till the cows come home, but it's interesting. You got to listen to it. Anyway, back to this presentation. So energy decay kills you by round 4. It really does. Like I touched on before, rounds 1 and 2, you yourself, you're curious, you're sharp, your energy comes across natural. I think by round 4, it's a bit of fake energy. It's like, oh, you've got to psych yourself up, and it's tough. The answers are alive and the room responds to it. You're engaged. Round 3, that first fatigue signal kicks in. You're getting asked the same questions that you got asked in round 1, and you're like, oh, what am I here for? It's just a waste of time. Can't you all just get in the room? But so your answers are still strong, but there's less spontaneity with it. And by 4, same answers, less spark, less curiosity. It's hard. And the point of this, I'm just trying to give you some ideas what to do, especially in rounds 4, 5, 6. And this 5, 6, I mentioned before, it's theatre and risk management. The CFO or the CEO meets a version of you that you wouldn't hire either, because you're just over it. So it's like approaching round 5, 6, like you are round 1, which I'll talk about in a bit. I touched on before, different panels hear different answers. You do get asked the same questions, and imagine being asked the same question 4 times from 4 different people. You're probably thinking, oh, here we go again. But you've just got to give that conviction like you had in the first interview. And this is the examples I'm coming up with here, right? So I led the integration after the acquisition, right? You can be passionate, enthusiastic about the answer. Round 3, you answer it slightly different. I was part of the team that integrated the business, and it's a different story. You led it, and you're enthusiastic, and now you're just part of the team. And that's not having a criticism of you. It's just the language you use. And then that person in round 3 is telling the person in round 1, oh, they just said they were part of the team, you didn't lead it, kind of thing. So language does count for a lot. And by round 5, you're just that over it. We had a couple of acquisitions during the time there. And the story from round 1 has collapsed. And the all compare notes and the gaps start to show. It could be a small gap, but just the language you're using. And I've talked about narrative drift. I was actually Googling that term, but narrative drift is a real thing. It's not dishonesty, it is fatigue. So it's like you need to reflect on round 1 and 2, what did I say, how did I answer that? And just be mindful of that. So if you do get asked with this acquisition example, for your answer to be nailed on each time and have that enthusiasm, because they do compare notes. Again, like I touched on before, 2 or 3 interviews, get the people in the room. Like, why are you getting asked the same questions? It doesn't make sense, does it? But that's what's happening now. So narrative drift, make sure your story's right, and you're using the same language. You're prepared for the interviews. Obviously, every interview you go for, no matter what level you are, you're prepared, right? You are going to be as prepared as you can, and you're going to take it seriously. I'm not saying as well with this presentation that by round 3, 4, 5, you're just going to go there for the conversation kind of thing. But there is a point as well with preparation. You can be over prepared. I touched on the last episode as well, that AI rehearsed answers, corporate, and they hear a script. It's not the person, it's not your language, it's not you they're hearing. But well prepared it's a bit different. Over prepared and well prepared, you've got 2 or 3 sharp questions for this interviewer, not the person who interviewed you in round 1, 2, or 3. It's this person who's interviewing you, and you adjust for the room so it sounds like a person having a conversation, not just a candidate with scripted answers, which I'll touch about. So round by round, okay, this is the survivor's playbook. It's amazing we're even talking about that, surviving the interview process. It's just crazy, isn't it? And I honestly, I'll die on the hill that you only need 2 or 3 interviews, but so the recruiter screen, set the narrative. Why you? Why this role? Why the company? I mean, with recruiters, especially people like yourself, you can be comfortable. You can be clear what you want, why you're excited it, and make it repeatable. A lot of companies in the first round, which I always push back with my clients, is have HR do the first screening. I mean, if they've gone through a recruiter, I've done that screening for them. And HR tend to ask you these standard questions, standard HR behavioral questions that we've all been through. Tell me a situation where you've had to deal with a difficult stakeholder, those kind of questions. The testing fit and reliability, not competence, but it's about being aware for them, showing self-awareness. The hiring manager is a peer-to-peer conversation, and that's when you need your sharp business questions and you can demonstrate your judgment and your achievements and show them what you can do. A peer panel, and I think a lot of people get wrong with that, it is about listening as much as you're doing talking. You want to prove that you're a good colleague. You don't want to just talk at these people all the time. So you've got to listen and obviously gauge a conversation and that like that. You've got to get across that you are going to be good to work with in value add, and that you do listen to what their challenge is. And again, you have a couple of questions designed for peers compared to the actual direct manager. Round 5, the CFO, CEO, this is the trust round, which I talked about. They've assumed confidence. Now they're asking who I would choose this person. Will I choose this person in a crisis? And if you remember from last week, if you were here last week, these episodes as well are on my LinkedIn. If you want me to send you them directly, I can do. And remember last week with the CFOs, what they check beyond the technical. It's about communication. Can they push back? Will the business actually listen? It's about pressure. How are they when it gets hard? It's about that awareness. It's about examples where you have failed and what you did about it. And self-awareness as well. That it's how self-aware are you? Do you put it on? Do you blame others, or do you just take responsibility for it? So it's showing that you can own failure and grow from it, and being able to describe that to that CFO, CEO at that stage. I think it's a good way. And like I said, if you want that presentation, just let me know. And back to this one. Yeah, and I've put in here as well, and any candidate, any of you know me, I do believe in this as well. You've just got to be yourself. People buy off you. They don't want to buy off some fake scripted person. Ultimately, I mean, all the jobs you've had, you've been employed for who you are, for what you are as a person. They're not just employing technical ability. They want you to be a good fit to the team. You're good for their business, a good team player kind of thing. So be yourself and build rapport is a key to it. The one question I touched on before, and ask it at every round: what concerns do you have about me at this stage? Is there anything I've missed? And this is a good question. Obviously, you don't be too direct. Obviously, wait for your time to ask this question. What concerns do you have? If after the first interviews, they might be like, "Oh, Rich, we like you, we like this. I don't think you're missing anything. We're keen to put you forward for the second interview. I think you'd fit well." You're asking that question, and maybe like we could be like, "Oh, Rich, we like you. We think you're missing the systems part." And this is just an example. At least we might not have talked about systems in the interview. At least it gives me an opportunity to talk about that. Or we didn't talk about it much, but I actually did this implementation. It is a frustration for candidates when they get feedback, oh, Sally's great, but she doesn't have this. And then when I speak to Sally, Sally's like, they didn't even ask me about that. So it's a good question to ask. What concerns do you have about me at this stage? Am I missing anything? Do you want me to clarify anything? You can obviously play on those words. And it does get rid of these hidden concerns on the table. Like if they did have a concern, but they still like you, that you're missing, whatever it may be, at least you can prepare for the next interview and address that in the second meeting, third meeting. Also, I put here, it flips the dynamic. You stop being an auditioner and become a peer, someone who's the confidence to ask a direct question. And I think it just shows, it signals, it does show that self-awareness. And that demonstrates the single trait every CFO is actively looking for, the capacity to see yourself clearly. And I think it's a great question to have. And put that, and another good tip as well, and I've been telling a lot of candidates to do this, take your journal to the interview, like take your notebook, whatever you use, your compendium, and have some questions prepared, because you always forget, like throughout the course of an interview, a lot of your questions that you're going to ask at the end have been answered, and you might get to that end, or have you got any questions? And you might be like, well, you've answered them all, and that could be the case, but then it just looks bad, doesn't it? It looks like you don't have any questions and you're not being. So even if you have a journal, I had some feedback from this was a client a year ago. He chose a candidate because this lady had a notebook and she opened a page and she had about 15 questions there. She didn't ask 15 questions, but it was like, oh wow, like handwritten questions. So it just looked like she was planning for it. She was well researched. She was curious. She had questions. That over preparation, it just works well. And don't ever feel ashamed to be walking into an interview with a notebook. I think it could be a differentiator for you. So 3 things before your next round. I know I've given you homework, but look, give this a go. So lock in your narrative. Write your core story in 3 sentences and test it out loud. Then repeat every word. Like I mentioned last time, talk it out. Don't just think it in your head. Sleep properly before each round. Prepare tightly, not obsessively. Think of 2 or 3 new questions for that peer. Like, for example, say you're meeting HR, finance, and then you're meeting operations. Have some operational questions. Don't obviously ask them finance ones. Walk in fresh, not overly rehearsed. Have a think of your last interview. What works well, what didn't? How can you tweak it? How can you refine it? And close every round. What concerns do you have about me at this stage, like we just touched on? And ask that without fail, without obsession, depending on who you're speaking to. If you're meeting someone in sales, ask them that question. They'll give you feedback there and then, and it helps you for that next meeting. And it just shows that self-awareness. And I've put it on here as well. The candidates who win don't endure the process, they lead it. And when you think of it like that, right, I've got 5, 6 interviews to do. This is how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to nail this interview process. So why is the process this long, you ask? And it's not because companies are being thorough. It's because no one wants to be the one who decides, is the truth of it. We've taught, I mean, if you know me, I've taught a lot analysis paralysis. There is that lack of leadership, is that the people are scared to make a decision. Oh, is it Dave? Is it Sally? Oh, I don't know. Oh, like it's interesting. Like, even roll back a few years, it's like, bang, Sally's the one. Let's do it. And I'm just using Sally just figuratively. But yeah, it's just analysis paralysis, and it doesn't make sense, but that's how companies are doing it. We're in a very risk-averse environment at the moment. So here are some truths. This is why the process keeps on getting longer. 8 people have a vote. No one has the call. Consensus is slow, and accountability is absent. Yeah, that's what's happening with a lot of these long processes. Like, 4 people could like you, and the 5th doesn't. And it's like the 5th person could be someone you've got nothing to do with, and it falls over. But yeah, companies, we keep on trying to consult with these companies that they're tripping themselves up. But yeah, no one seems to take ownership on it. Internal politics adds rounds. We've seen that every stakeholder wants visibility, and I think we've fallen into this trap of trying to get everyone involved and everyone has a say. And really, on a day-to-day basis, they might not be dealing with those people. Like, again, having HR involved, not just once but twice through a process, making that call on culture fit it's like, well, if you think they're good for the culture of your team, and then someone tells you they're not. I mean, I've got numerous examples around that. But yeah, there is a lot of internal politics. You've got to have everyone involved, these people in the team, and it's just not really necessary, but that's what happens. Interviewing is free consulting. I have seen this, and I've heard this frustration from candidates throughout the years, where they're doing a case study and they give it, and then the process falls flat. It's like giving them free information. How would it plan for the next 90 days? And you're just giving that CFO some good ideas. There was a famous case in the UK, a big brewery, which interestingly has gone bust recently, but they were looking for a head of marketing for their company in the UK. And they all did case studies, presentations, and not one of them got hired. They used all their presentations and actually went forward with a few of their ideas of the candidates and didn't pay them. The candidates kind of kicked off royally, and there was massive articles in the newspaper, and this company got smashed for it. But yeah, karma's a thing, and they've gone bust now. So there you go. Risk aversion runs the process. An extra round always feels safer than a decision. Fast is read as reckless. I placed a CFO on one interview. When was this? 3 years ago. One interview. They loved it. Great. And I was, as a recruiter, I was thinking, oh, the guy's still there. The CFO's still there. He's still killing it. But yeah, risk aversion. Oh, it's too fast kind of thing. But that gut feeling, if they're good, they've got good references, and you feel they're right, that's what probations are for. I'm talking about probation. I was asked about that the other day. Probations are there for a reason, but we're too scared to use them these days. Like, what's the point of probation if we're not going to use it? You only really know what someone's like when the bum's on the seat, right? So comparison shopping. We've seen this a lot over the last 3 years, where they love a candidate. Who else have you got? It's like, yeah, but you love Dave and Sally. Well, yeah, if you got anyone else. We've done that before. We've presented a couple options. Dave and Sally have got. They've taken another role. The best candidate withdraws. And companies don't seem to register the cost. And then guess what? The hiring takes 2-3 months kind of thing. You've had the candidate right there, but that's what happens. And the hiring manager, I'll put here to kind of close this up a bit, loses power. And they're just one vote among many. They're not the decider anymore. And we've seen that. We've seen hiring managers overruled. And these are senior people. We've seen CFOs. We've seen heads of finance, commercial directors being overruled. And I've put here, at stage 6, the question isn't can you do the job, it's whether you're still a person they met at stage 1. And have a think about that. I think it's a good way to think. Am I as exciting, as energetic, and as good as what I was on stage 1? Is a great way to look at it. So look, let me see if there's any more questions come through, and if they're not come through, I'll get back to you. But yeah, a couple of questions here. I mean, what's the longest interview process you've been through? I've heard of months. CFO was dealing with last year 8 months. It took from his first conversation to the last 8 months. Like, what are these companies doing, you think? But look, and where did you lose the energy? If you're looking at this presentation, just put your thoughts in the comments. But yeah, it's an interesting time. It really is. But look, next week I am going to talk about how to work with recruiters, because believe me, some of you have got no idea. We've got people who are applying to every single one of our jobs. People call me, they don't leave a message. Like, call me, leave a voicemail. I get as a recruiter, I get so many sales calls per day. So I'm not picking up every single call. So just leave me a message, send me a text. But I'll give you some insight into that next week. You all think recruiters are busy. We are to a certain extent, but look, we're happy to take your phone call. So next week, we're going to talk about how to work with recruiters from me, a recruiter who will tell you the truth. I hope this has been insightful for you. Any questions, put it in the comments or reach out to me directly. And have a great Friday, great weekend, and I'll look forward to having a chat with you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.